Attack on Titan has evolved from what used to be considered one of the most overhyped shows to one that could end up being a modern classic. Attack on Titan's story has reinvented itself each and every season, with its fourth season about to do the same. Today, I want to take a look back on its beautiful evolution into the modern classic we now know it to be. Somewhere around 2015, I stumbled across the first season Hype Monster through a recommendation from a friend. Somehow I had not heard of the series before that, but quickly I was a part of the hype noise from the show. In only 2 days, I had binged the first 25 episodes, and about a week later, I had seen it again. Through my first experience with Attack, I was completely invested in learning about the mysteries of the world and getting caught up in the big action scenes it had to offer. But after learning how the world works and getting more time and dedication to each character, my current investment in the story is completely different than it was back then. That is in large part due to the interesting ways the characters were written in the first season. The first season does a fantastic job at developing many of our main characters and laying the groundwork for their progression to come in later seasons, with my favorite among them being Armin. I recently came out with a video titled Why Armin is My Favorite Character in Attack on Titan, so I won't repeat it here. However, Armin's subtle growth into a valuable soldier throughout the first season was one of the most compelling aspects at the start of the show. The other character that progressed in the first season is Jean, turning from an unlikable soldier to one that you would root for. However, above all else, the characters might not all progress in the first season, but they do have individual ideologies that are the base for how the future of the story progresses. As we now know, each character's individual philosophy plays a huge role in the story and the flow of the narrative. This is all set up by Isayama, taking the time to develop each character and who they are. Of course, our trio of main characters are well fleshed out, since we start out with them from the beginning of the series, since they were kids. Eren lives to kill the Titans. Armin wants to get outside of the walls and find the ocean, and Mikasa wants to stay by Eren's side. The same type of basic development for each of these main characters is accompanied by an intriguing world and big action sequences. Now, the development never takes center stage until later on, because the mystery of the world occupies our minds, but nonetheless, the characters are grounded in development and makes the future changes to them have an impact on the audience. In a layover between Season 1 and Season 2, the characters were hit the hardest with criticism about how some are annoying and others are just cool action heroes but don't develop. The narrative surrounding the show was a fair criticism at the time, but a criticism that does not hold its value as later seasons have come out. Each character reflects a unique path on how war and hate affects individuals. For Eren and many of the scouts, it is their drive to change this world, but that drive is constantly tested with each battle they encounter with the scouts. Each one of them growing more and more desperate and brutal. The start of the series, we see Titans slaughter humanity, setting Eren's drive in motion. Trost then expands on this by starting out with an initial slaughter, but ending with hope that maybe humanity can take over the mindless Titans. The Battle of Trost is split into two different important moments: the death and resurrection of Eren. I would argue that the simplistic and nuanced views of the show are started and ended here. When Eren dies, it is black and white, just like we think the world of the Titans is. But when Eren is resurrected, everything is forced to become more nuanced. We thought the world of Attack on Titan was basic: kill or be killed. But in reality, the world is full of messed up people just trying to do their best. When Eren comes back, our original naive view of the story is left behind, creating a path for deeper storytelling to come with it, being paralleled by the characters themselves, learning more about the world. The Battle of Trost is then redefined through the female Titan arc, when the scouts are now out in the open. The walls are nowhere in sight, and now Eren has to face the reality that he has the power to save people, but will he actually be able to control this power? It isn't a Titan chasing down humanity anymore, it is people. This is the first test for the black and white ideologies of our characters, the first test to see if they will progress under these circumstances, or die. Many of the characters who die in the first season are a representation of an idea. For Levi Squad, they wanted Eren to put their faith in them, to trust the plan. But in the end, they are all killed because of their inability to adapt. They were unable to progress. Using the same move twice in an attempt to kill the female Titan, they fail to understand that they can't attack Annie like they could a regular Titan. They fail to evolve, so they died. Now, I wouldn't say this is the only reason characters die in the series, far from it. But as the story moves forward, each character has to evolve, or else they will not make it. Season 2 is where we see a subtle shift from the bombastic action thrill ride to a more subtle narrative that starts to deeply explore its characters and plot. More of the background characters start to come to life, specifically the relationship between Ymir and Historia, filling out their motivations and their really different relationship from everything else in the series. But it doesn't stop there. Reina and Bertolt also get some nice development from where they were at the start of the series. Characters start to make difficult choices and come out of their shells. Nothing is straightforward anymore, which is added on by the bizarre narrative shift we see through the Titans. We now see a Titan with fur that can speak, and two more comrades of Eren's turn out to be the perpetrators of death seen so far in the series. As the story moves forward, we are less and less sure about who is right and who is wrong, and that starts to come into focus in the second season. Narratively, there isn't really that big of a change from season 1 to season 2. We get some important moments where characters discuss their views on the world and how scared of dying they are, and then we get a big thrilling action sequence to end season 2. But it is when you look at the series in a larger focus that you can see the groundwork being paid off from the first season setup. This leading to the first real drastic change in the series. The first half of Season 3 is totally focused on the political workings of the world. Human versus human combat dominates the action, as Eren, for the second time in a row, is a damsel in distress. Remember all of the times in the first season where Armin gives the audience an explanation about the cruel but necessary decisions the government has to make when the walls fall? At the time, you think, let's get back to the action, but after the first half of Season 3, you start to care about the politics of Attack on Titan. The hallways in between the big action scenes in the first season start to pay off in a big way in the third season, as we see just how bad of a situation the people in the walls are actually in. Not only are there Titans trying to kill them all, but they also serve a king who won't tell them the truth. A king who is worried about their place, and he won't even reveal himself to the world. This is also where we see Eren hit rock bottom and start to grow as the protagonist of the series. Eren asks Historia to kill him because he refuses to accept a different outlook on life. The world is a cruel place for everyone. There is no definite right or wrong, and of course, Eren is not special. Eren wants to cling to the childish belief that the world is black and white, but Historia forces him to see things differently. He starts to progress and is able to live longer. This is when Attack on Titan shows us that the series has more than bombastic elements, but is crafting deeply profound ideas through its characters and world building. Krista literally becomes an entirely different person in Historia and decides to take her own path. Eren comes to terms with the fact that he is not a special person, but just happened to be the son of a man who possessed power. Levi even starts to understand who he is outside of the Titan killer machine. Then we get the second half of Season 3. Which takes everything we have been building up to and adds to it in a uniquely complex sprint to get to the time skip. The action heights that were reached in the first season are back in full force, with 3 Titan shifters facing off against the Scouts. The feeling of being stranded in an unwinnable situation is there from the first season. The action still has the original excitement with the ODM gear, but also has a continued nuance with the Titan shifters. And the political elements don't leave either, with the question of why they would be doing this. Why would these Titan shifters be trying to kill humanity looming large? And of course, we have all of the character progression that makes any sort of climax worth it. Eren continues to understand his role in humanity to the point where he is able to execute a plan that will almost certainly kill his best friend. And we get a beautiful parallel between Armin and Erwin, both of them fighting on opposite sides of the wall, and they come to the same conclusion. They will have to sacrifice their lives to let one person save the day. Armin being the one chosen to be resurrected, because we know that Erwin will never be able to leave his dream behind, while Armin will no doubt be able to continue to progress upon reaching the sea. This leads us to the time skip and the last major evolution in Attack on Titan, because at this point in the story, humanity has achieved their goal of killing the Titans outside of the walls. They have seemingly killed all of their enemies, and yet there is still more. Eren takes over the narrative and becomes the perpetrator that he despised when he was a kid. The Marley arc being positioned to take the politics, action, and character progression to even further heights, with an ending that will likely leave us all speechless. All of this from what seemed to be a basic concept: Titans versus humans, David versus Goliath. Each character seemed to be basic, but as the narrative widens, we learn more about the world. Each character progresses and becomes more interesting. The best stories are always the ones that are the most tightly woven, with everything working towards the same goal. This is the case with the evolution of Attack on Titan, from a pure action series to a political thriller, and later on, a combination of them both. The evolution being fueled by the secrets of the world constantly being searched out by these characters, and these characters progressing their own ideologies as they learn more and more. This progress is what fuels the many deaths in the show. If you refuse to evolve, then you will not survive. All leading up to the final season, where we will get to see this evolution pay off, and what may be one of the most gruesome and bittersweet endings in all of anime, leaving us to think if there has really been an evolution in the storytelling of Attack on Titan, or if the storytelling has been a tightly woven web from the first episode, and we just weren't able to see it until now. Thank you guys for watching this video. By the time this is up, the first episode of the new Attack on Titan season will have aired, so I'm super hyped about that. And of course, if you enjoyed this video and you enjoy my work and you want to support me, go down to the link down below and check out my Patreon. You can get all of the benefits there. Follow me on Twitter at AnnieEssays if you want to hear my thoughts on each Attack on Titan episode as it airs and the new chapters of the manga. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.